Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Savage Goose Show, where we talk about all things Savage Goose. Today, I'm joined by Travis. Travis, how do you say your last name? Is it
Leg?
Leg?
Actually,
Okay, there
it's
you go.
pretty
All right.
straightforward.
I almost said Liege, and I was like, that may not be it at all, actually.
People get really creative sometimes with their pronunciations of it, but it is in fact
Just Leg. Okay, Travis Leg. All right, so we're joining Travis Leg from Aegis Studio. We're going to talk about Studios. Sorry. We're going to talk about Scarred Lands for Savage Worlds and what that means, but that's going to come down later in the show. Until then, we're going to first talk about the news from the week, starting with this week's newsletter. First up, just hey, if you haven't heard, in case you've been living on a rock, Carrying Crown is live on BackerKit. It has been for I think a couple of weeks now, and this is going really well. People are really excited for it. If you don't know what Carrying Crown is, it is a adventure path that was originally made for Pathfinder First Edition and is now being done for Savage Worlds, for Pathfinder for Savage Worlds. So if you're, and it's specifically it's a spookier setting for Savage Worlds, so really fit to start the Kickstarter in October. That being said, probably not expected until next October. So lots of cool stuff here. If I was planning on running another adventure path, I'd probably run this one. Currently, I'm running through the Rise of the Rune Lords, and I'm excited to get it done. I'm enjoying it, but I am ready to play something else. Just get some more kinds of things going on. I do want to apologize. I think I am coming down with some sort of sickness. So if I sound nasally or am I coughing or need to blow my nose or whatever, pausing for taking a breath, I do apologize. But such is this time of year. Just I think starting to get cold and getting sick. But yeah, so take a look at that, and there is a preview for Carrying Crown as well. That's now over on Chart RPG. Check that out. It is International Games Month, and Savage Worlds Pinnacle Entertainment Group is a proud partner of that. So what does it mean for it to be International Games Month? Well, from my understanding, it is a global initiative designed to reconnect communities with libraries and educational, recreational, and other kinds of games. And so PEG is supporting these libraries. So if you live in these areas, you can now go find Savage Worlds content on the shelves of those libraries. So Sunny Slope High School in Phoenix, Illinois Prairie District Public School in Metamora, Illinois, Norfolk Public Library and Norfolk, Massachusetts, Avon Branch Library in Lorraine and Avon, Ohio, which I think is near where my parents live, so that's pretty cool. And Austin Community College, Rio Grande campus in Austin, Texas. Hopefully, the stuff that is here is the Pine Box Middle School stuff. I hope they put Pine Box Middle School stuff in Austin, Texas. That's what they should.
That seems appropriate.
Yeah. And then whenever the new version of ETU comes out, they should also put that in Texas. So this week on the Savage Universe, Brandon Verhalen from Aegis Studios is going to be talking about Secret World on the Savage Universe stream. I had a brief hiatus for the Savage Universe stream, and we're coming back. So check it out on Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern with JM Devaki. So take a look at that. If you're not busy your Friday night, if you don't have any games going on, go check it out. Convention news. Savage Worlds at MythicCon 2025 is this weekend. So if you're going to MythicCon 2025, hey, you can go hang out with some people from Pinnacle. Jody and Clint Black will be there, as well as other people. I'm sure many people from the Savage Worlds community will be there if Jody and Clint are there. And this is in Charlotte, near Charlotte University, that this is happening. So if you're nearby, go check it out. We have a few licensee spotlights, and we're going to mention them here. We're also mentioning them in the Kickstarter section. Licensee spotlight. First one is the Heart of Glass for Savage Worlds on BackerKit. This is another Street Wolves mini campaign. If you're not familiar with Street Wolves, I did a review about it. You can take a look at that. And it's this really cool synthwave-inspired, neon-filled RPG that takes place in the late 80s. You can see here, like 1987 is one of the time periods that we're looking at. And it's just like, for me, what I call is like a retro. It's retro future. It's what the 80s thought the future was going to look like, and then like have that technology there. And it looks really cool. I really like it. I hope that I can get to run this soon. I don't know when that's going to happen, but it's on high on my list of things I want to run soon. But this mini campaign is currently on BackerKit, and if you're interested in that, or if you're just interested in Street Wolves in general, you can take a look at the links down below. Next up, swag spotlight is the Dire Tenant one sheet for Savage Worlds. If you know me, you know I love the City Guard Chronicles. This is another one sheet for the City Guard Chronicles. They are great. adventures that you can run quickly and simply for people who are just learning how to play Savage Worlds. I personally like it because I feel like it really gets into the nitty gritty of playing Savage Worlds and still be able to keep it fantasy. Some of the advice people give is that if you're going to do Savage Worlds, you shouldn't do fantasy right off the bat because people are just going to compare it to D&D or Pathfinder or something. And I find that this lets you play in a fantasy world, but still have the game be different enough from typical heroic fantasy that you're playing as City Guard members, that people still have that like separation from D&D. So I highly recommend these adventures. I haven't read this one particular one yet, but highly recommend taking a look at it. All right. And that is everything from our newsletter. Let's go ahead and jump back over to our slides here. New products. Launching Tuesday, November 25th, is this comic book, Crystal Heart, from Up to 4 Players. I don't remember the name of their publishing company. But this is being released through Dark Horse, and it is a collection. It will be a physical collection of a web comic on Up to 4 Players, specifically their series on playing Crystal Heart together. Now, Crystal Heart is a really interesting Savage Worlds setting. I highly recommend checking it out. This is not going to be the setting book. This is actually a comic book that is going to be utilizing the mechanics of Savage Worlds in the comic, because the comic's going to follow both the players and the characters of Crystal Heart, and they're going to be rolling dice. They're going to be having explosions. They're going to be getting excited about activating and doing different things and everything. And that's all playing out in this webcomic. You can find this on November 25th in places like Barnes & Noble, on Amazon, and all those kind of like other bookstore places. Again, this is being released through Dark Horse Comics, which is, if you don't know, is a fairly large distributor of comics. I think they have the rights to like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics and stuff like that. I'm super excited for it. I don't know about you.
That sounds cool.
I'm super excited just to get. And I've read some of the web comic. The problem was I got up to current, and then I was like, well, I can't wait to just only read one comic once a week. So so now that's all together, all collected in one book. I'll be able to
right, much easier to parse it and to get through.
I'm also just to say, because this should be a really good opportunity for Savage Worlds to get exposure. Like a comic where people are playing Savage Worlds is, I think, a really cool idea.
That's a very cool concept. Nice way to hopefully introduce to a new audience.
Yeah, they have a 2-page comic that basically teaches the rules, like the basic rules of how to play Savage Worlds, and it's what I use to hand people to new players. Like, hey, read this 2-page comic, and you'll know how to play Savage Worlds.
That's super cool.
Yes, highly recommend it. I do have some other new products I want to mention real quick. Sorry, that's not something I don't want to mention. So first one is Moon Touch, the Dreadwild Ancestry. There's a new product from Sync Scale Games called the Dreadwild, and it looks super interesting. I haven't fully dove into it yet. I'm hoping that we can convince them to do a print-on-demand option, because I like getting physical books, and I usually wait to hold off on getting PDFs so that I can get a print-on-demand version whenever they release a print-on-demand version. So if you're ever seeing me like, hey, why are you not bought this book yet? It's because I'm waiting in hopes that they'll release a print-on-demand option. But it's a new product for the Dreadwild, and it's an Ancestry, the Moon Touch. So it's basically just like another Ancestry for the Dreadwild setting. Let's see here. I think that's the only one I have today. So I think that's all I got. Back to our slides. And so Kickstarters. Ending Saturday, November 8th, is the Secret World for Savage Worlds. This is a RPG that's based on a MMO RPG, and it is using several system. They did kickstart the actual book. I think it was like sometime last year. This is for a physical print run. So instead of using like my copy, which is a print on demand option, you can get a print. You can get a traditional print run version, as well as some traditional print run of like things like cards and bennies and things like that through this Kickstarter. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, getting like the nice physical print run of the Secret World, this is your chance. Go check out Kickstarter for that. Carrying Crown ends on Friday, November 14th. We've already gone over from this. This is a spooky adventure path for Pathfinder for Savage Worlds. So if that's what you're looking for, highly recommend checking it out. I'd be tempted to, but I still have enough time to play all the other RPGs I want to, so I need to hold back and start playing something like Scarred Lands and Vermilion and Street Wolves, and there's so many other games I want to play. So I'm personally holding back on that. But if you're interested in Pathfinder Savage Worlds and you want something spooky, highly recommend checking this out. I'm very tempted to. I just haven't decided not to. Ending on Saturday, November 15th, is Scarred Lands Player's Guide for Savage Worlds. We're talking more about this here in a bit, so we'll skip over this for now, and we'll talk more about it soon.
Seems fair.
Ending on Thursday, November 20th, is Pear Tree Studios Beacon Island. So if you know Pete Saloom, he's been on the channel quite a few times talking about how to design adventures, how to design encounters. We have a little show we do back together. We haven't done anything in a while, though. I'm going to get on that. But he is doing a Beacon Island Kickstarter. This is a game that takes place in the 90s where you play as teenagers and trying to investigate weird things going on. So that sounds like it's something up your alley. Check it out. Also ending on Thursday, November 20th, is Savage Hunter. So it's a game that's inspired by, but not directly at a direct equivalent to a game like Monster Hunter and Dragon Quest, where you are hunting monsters and you are using their parts to upgrade your gear, make better things. You have to go out and use different gear depending on what kind of thing you're kind of hunting. So I talked to the people over at BP Games last week? I think it was last week about this. So if you're interested in hearing more about it, go check out that stream from last week. It did take quite a while, though. We talked a lot about different things, monster design, that kind of stuff. So go take a look at that, though, if you're interested in Savage Hunter. Ending on November 18th is the Chronicles of Aerith for Savage Worlds. I think I've said in this past, I'm not super familiar with this. I haven't had a chance. I haven't read through the Kickstarter yet. So I definitely need to do that. But if you're interested in this one, it does end on November 18th. There's a lot of Kickstarters going on. So definitely worth checking out to see if it's something that you're interested in. I meant to change this. It actually ends on Monday, December 1st. It says started today. The Heart of Glass for Street Wolves. Start today. It'll end on December 1st. So let's pick that out later. But if you're interested in that, check that one out as well. And that brings us to our monthly Ace Swag licensee spotlight. Secret Worlds is being done by Star Anvil Studios, and Starbreaker, Saints and Sinners, and just Starbreaker in general is also done by Star Anvil Studios. Here we have my copy of Star Anvil for Starbreaker. This is the Saints cover, so the theoretical good guys of the setting. And so what is Starbreaker? Starbreaker is the setting, this far off distant setting. In space, it's obviously you can probably get tough from this. It's sci-fi. There's aliens. There's augmentations, and Saints and Sinners specifically is about you playing either as a saint or a sinner, or a sinner being someone who is a member of the Syndicate, an evil organization that is kind of controlling the outer rim of society out in space. And the Saints have taken some sinner agents, and have installed devices in them that kind of tell them what to do, or like if they go against what they're supposed to do, they can get hurt. Somewhat of an idea, like kind of like you see in what's the movie, like
a Suicide Squad kind of thing.
That's the one. Suicide Squad. That's the one I was trying to think of. Suicide Squad. So it's a really interesting setting. There's also another expansion called Star Marines where you play as Star Marines, and you kind of builds on this existing setting. So if you're looking for a really, we'll go more into this as we go through the month, because this is one thing we cover all month. We'll go into more details later this month of all things that are in this book. But if this is something you're interested in, like you're looking for some sort of really good science fiction setting, this is the one to check out for Savage Worlds. All right. With that being said, let's talk about Scarred Lands. I've known about Scarred Lands for quite a while. I guess. Here, let's stop the screen share real quick. I've known about Scarred Lands for quite a while. I'd have to guess about 10 years now, maybe a little bit less. And that's because Scarred Lands has been around for 25 years, Travis. Is that accurate?
It's the 25th anniversry, this year. Which is
20.
Wild to think about.
So coming out at the turn of the century turn of the millennium, in 2000, it was the original piece for Scarred Lands, and then about 10 years ago, we were discussing earlier, was the 5e version for Scarred Lands Player's Book. I backed that 10 years ago, and unfortunately, I never got to play it. That being said, I've always been interested in it. I have run the one of the adventures, which is the Gauntlet of Sparagos. I've run that in 5e, just not with this particularly in mind. And Chelsea, you're going to be doing conversion of this to Savage Worlds. let's start by let me just asking, what is what is your pitch for Scarred Lands? Not necessarily Scarred Lands for Savage Worlds, but what's your pitch for Scarred Lands?
Sure. So Scarred Lands is a world in which there was a Titanomachy, a divine war between gods and titans in living memory. It ended about 150 years ago, so there's a good chance that if you're, one of the shorter-lived ancestries, like a human, you might have a family heirloom that was used during the divine war by an ancestor. If you were an elf or a dwarf, it's entirely possible that you were alive then and fought shoulder to shoulder with a god. This war was cataclysmic. It created a lot of problems. It left the world scarred. So there are environments that are altered as a result of the magical energies from this war. There are up to and including even like the still writhing body of a bound titan, where you might go for an adventure. So and all these things can have like a corrupting effect on the environment. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's basically a place. It's a fantasy setting in which the gods and the titans threw down, and when they didn't do it in some high realm. They did it on your back porch, and now the world is rebuilding, and the heroes may be trying to establish a new empire or help an old empire return. They may be working to serve the gods. Some people are still working to resurrect the Titans. They want the Titans back. Yep. So, yeah, that's the basic bird's eye view, I guess, of the setting.
Right. So often when we think of Titans and the Titans and the gods, we're thinking Greek mythology, which I think you mentioned in the Kickstarter. This is very much
there is a strong inspiration of from Greek mythology, particularly in the Pantheon. And not so much like there's not so much like one-to-one comparisons. Sure. Oh, this god is clearly this god, but like in the ways that the Pantheon interacted with one another, in the flaws and the foibles of the gods. All of the divine creatures in this setting are deeply flawed, which is very much a Greek mythology thing. So yeah, that's kind of where the inspiration comes from, and then just some of the kind of horrors of Greek mythology as well. In the terms of like what went down during the Divine War and what caused the Divine War and things along those lines.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I find really fascinating about the setting is that you said it's part of the living memory. It's not something that happened like generations ago. You know, we look at like Pathfinder and they talk about the Earth Fells, the big event, but that was 4,000 years ago. We're talking about something that's much more recent, where you are still seeing as you walk around the effects of. I think you mentioned like in like the. You like the one thing you guys mentioned, I think it's in the Kickstarter as well, is that like one of the lakes is red with blood because there's a Titan
ocean
bottom.
Ocean,
right? Okay,
the Blood Sea. The Titan Kadum, the mountain shaker, had his heart ripped out of his chest. Hey, Zug. Sorry, my cat. It had his heart ripped out of his chest and was bound in chains and thrown to the bottom of an ocean. That ocean now he still lies bleeding at the bottom of the ocean. And so his blood is corrupting everything it touches. It's making the creatures more aggressive. It has all sorts of nasty effects. The Titans all have sort of corrupting effects to their blood, their ichor, their fluids. Their some places you can still find body parts of Titans, that like literal meat of the Titans that carries corruption as well. So so that's one of the landscapes.
Okay, so it's a lot of interesting lore and things. Just I think it's very interesting, like how kind of like grim it is because it's so recent in memory and still has like the effects are still ongoing.
Yeah.
Bankel asks, is this a Bronze Age setting?
I don't know that I would say specifically Bronze Age. There's different continents have different degrees of technology or magitech, one might say. There's nowhere where you've got like an Eberron thing where it's like, it's modern technology but made through magic. Nothing so advanced as that. But there are some areas of the setting where steel is not uncommon. Where you'd have more of like I guess what you might consider like a traditional fantasy. Sort of your middle of the road levels of technology. You have steel weapons, you have metallic armors. Forging and smelting is a thing that people have intimate knowledge of. One of the principal gods of the pantheon is one of his main domains is blacksmiths and forging. So that type of technology is around for the most part. That said, there are 5 different continents on Scarn, and each one kind of has its own distinct feel and distinct vibe. The continent of Fenrilik, which is to the north, really is technologically behind the other ones quite a bit because it's an isolated northern frozen wasteland. Nobody goes there. They're so isolated, in fact, that they're not sure the Divine War happened. Like if somebody shows up from one of the other continents and starts talking about the Titans being destroyed, they're like, "What are you talking about? I hunted this morning. Therefore, Reinrek the Hunter must be alive." So yeah, there's and then Termana is more of like a there's like a area that's very isolated jungle, like uncontacted peoples in that section, and then there's a lot of the older empires of Termana got destroyed during the Divine War, so they're kind of rebuilding. But yeah, nothing. So it's certainly not as very few places anyway are as technologically, I guess, deprived as a Bronze Age setting would be, if that makes sense.
Sure. Okay, so that's the setting. We understand that there's a little preview of the setting. Why did you want to convert it to Savage Worlds?
A couple of reasons. One of the things that made the most sense to me about it was that Savage Worlds allows for a level of freedom in approach when you're building and advancing your character that I think really lets us steer into some of the cool aspects of the setting without having to shoehorn them into the more rigid structures that D&D presents.
I'm literally my video on Thursday is basically about that.
Yeah, one of the big just a big example that comes to mind is there's a setting rule called Mazos's Bane. As I mentioned, the remains of the Titans are places that you can generally adventure, or they have impacts on the universe. Mazos doesn't have his earthly remains are split up into such small pieces. He's scattered all across the planet. But when he died, he was the sire of sorcery. He was the Titan of magical energy. So when he was ripped to pieces, I shouldn't say died because he's technically alive. When he was ripped to pieces, his energy washed over the globe, and he is constantly trying to use magic to rebuild himself. So whenever you cast a spell using certain approaches to magic, basically if you're tapping into raw magical energy without like an insulation, if that makes sense. So like a bard, for example, uses their music. So that's like insulating them from dealing directly with magic. The clerics get their magic from the gods. That insulates them from dealing directly with sorcery. Druids get their magic from the Titans. That insulates them from dealing directly with it. But like a wizard or a sorcerer or an astrologer, somebody who's not an astrologer necessarily, but somebody who's using magic through a more traditional sense, when they do, they cause sparks in this energy. And so that will leave their body as like heat or light while they are casting. And then if they have a critical failure, it'll also actually be such an intense release of energy that it fatigues them and everybody in their immediate vicinity. So that is one way, because Savage Worlds is much more specific in how you customize your character. I can get very specific in who does and does not get affected by Mazos's Bane, rather than just saying, well, it's all wizards. You know what I mean? Like I can get into, I can right now it's designed to be broken out by arcane skill, and that's probably how I will leave it. So far, that's held up in the design, but I am still in the process of converting things and designing things, so that may change. But right now I'm keeping an eye on just having it decided by what your arcane skill is. Basically, anybody using spell casting, possibly another arcane skill if I add a couple more, because I know I have at least one. Well, I know for sure one that we're adding because I put it in the backer update today, which is astrology, which also interacts with magic in a completely different way. But that's another bonus of Savage Worlds is I can create these sort of subsystems that deal with more intense setting elements that if a player wants to explore, they can really dive into and really get into the nitty gritty details of. But like if your whole group is like, I don't care about the calendar of this world. You can just not worry about it, you know.
Just toss it away.
Right. And it's just not, it just doesn't matter. In terms, it doesn't prevent you from having a good time. And I like that too, because it allows it to feel like, because it's a 25-year-old setting. It's a very rich setting with a lot of elements to it. And I want to bring as many of those elements as I can directly into the player's guide. So I do want to make sure that new players and game masters that are engaging the world don't feel overwhelmed and do recognize and understand that, okay, I can toggle this thing on, this thing off. This thing is only going to matter if I choose to make it matter. That type of stuff, you know. So, and I think Savage Worlds inherently has that understanding. Much more.
It's got that modularity that you really need to be able to do that kind of thing.
Right, exactly. And that was the big selling point to me. And I've been an Aces publisher for a long time. Basically since before there was an Aces program, I was whatever, I don't remember what it was called before that.
Was it like licensed or something like that?
Yeah, licensed, official licensee or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been with the program for a very long time. So when I started talking, and this is my full-time job. I am a long-term contracted freelancer with Onyx Path Publishing. I handle their social media. I handle their Twitch channel programming. I was the Scarred Lands developer for 5e for 5 years. Technically, I'm still, I think, at the moment.
Is your name in this book?
My name that was before my time. The first thing that I developed was the GM screen for 5e that came out in like 2020, I believe. So, but yeah, so I was familiar with the company. I was familiar with the setting. I'm always kind of talking to Rich Thomas over there about different ways we can, explore Scarred Lands because I love it. So I always wanted to be out in the front. But 5e maybe hasn't performed as well as it could have for whatever reasons. So, he was receptive to let's check out Savage Worlds and see how that goes. And so far, it's chugging along. I would absolutely love to see it get out in front of more people for sure.
Yeah.
But also, we're starting relatively small. I mean, I realize that the player's guide sounds like a very, very large undertaking, and in many ways it will be.
Yes. For those who can't see, this is a thick book.
Yeah, and ours will be thicker, for sure. Right now, I'm estimating it at being about 400 pages, just shy of 400 pages.
And so this one's 300. It's hefty. It's hefty.
Yeah, and we will be covering a lot of. I mean, right now there's, I believe 35 is the number we're currently at of ancestries that are going to be in the book.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you don't mind if I kind of like transition into, let's talk about what's in the book. Yeah, so the first thing, it's like there's a lot of ancestries. Like compared to, I feel like most settings, there is quite a few. Like I said, I think there's 35 in there. Now, one of the things that when I first got this book, one of the things they talked about was that the races in this book were inherently more were stronger than the races in, like, say, like the normal D&D 2014 book.
Sure.
And in Savage Worlds, we have this idea of like things being made at +2 or +4 or +6. Yeah. What range of power level are we looking at for these races?
So all the ancestries are calculated to +4. And one of the things that we'll be doing with this that I don't see in a whole lot of other Savage Worlds books is right in the ancestry description, we will have the math broken out. So each widget will have its value to it. And the reason we do that is twofold. One, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page about how all that stuff works, but also because we're tackling the idea of half elves, half orcs, these sort of tropey sort of, characters that have multiple ancestries in their background. The way we're tackling that is effectively it's your Build-A-Bear project.
Right.
You can say, all right, I'm a half elf, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to, and that way you're not limited to like, well, dad must have been a human and mom must have been an elf. You can be like, my dad was a dwarf and my mom was an elf. So,
right. So you just like grab some stuff from like the dwarf. So it's basically you're making it so that you can make your own race, kind of like using the character creation stuff that's you see in the core,
right?
But with all of your additional stuff that you're adding in as well,
right? And just mix and match and set it up as long as you hit that net +4 value, then you're good to go.
Yeah. Are you separating? Are you of all the different abilities and such? Are you creating a separate list of all of them, or are you only putting them in the race itself?
Yeah, there'll be. I'm sure I'll have a little sidebar that's got like all of the new widgets that we're introducing. And there's not, in terms of like ancestral abilities, we're not introducing a whole lot of new stuff. There are some that we really had to there was just no way for me to do anything but build out of whole cloth. Like the Hollow Legionnaires, their characters, they're basically spirits possessing suits of armor. And so figuring out how that would manifest required me to make an entirely new ability. They're not really constructs and they're not really undead. They're kind of a liminal space between construct and undead.
Right.
So I had to make kind of a whole new thing called, I believe it's called Spireborn is the words we went through, because their souls are filtered through these big magical spires.
All right. So that's an interesting. So Bengal asks, what arcane backgrounds are there?
So we're going to have, for sure. Let me start by saying pretty much anything in the fantasy companions probably good to go as far as like player options.
Okay.
The existing options that are in other books. Things that we're going to be introducing. I will definitely be introducing the High Astrologer, and they rely on the Zodiac to gain and manipulate powers. So they can do things like, if they're each zodiacal sign has powers that it's connected to. So even if you don't know those powers, you can cast them by spending more power points during that Zodiac's month. So things like that. And then there are metallic associations. So if you're using a wand of the month that it currently, like that's got metal of the month that it's currently in, you'll get a bonus on your astrology check because you're leaning into those associations.
Sure.
So that's one. We've got the Ushidani, which are people who form pacts with various spirits. The animistic spirits of the setting are called Ushada. And there are nature Ushada, object Ushada, ancestral Ushada, and then location-based Ushada. And so one of the arcane backgrounds is taking that connection a step beyond what most do and building a spell casting relationship through that as a magic source.
Yeah.
I'm still on the fence about whether I'm going to just make some adjustments to the cleric as it's shown in the fantasy companion, just say this is how our clerics work, or just straight up create a new cleric. That's
and is that just a balance between like using what's already there, or what's the decision process for that?
If I can manage, because the gods play such a role in Scarred Lands, they're active. Like every god, one of the things that we're adding is every god has an invocation benefit. So if you spend a turn praying to that god, you will get a bonus. Now that can get sticky if you are, especially if you're like a worshiper of another god, like if you're either a cleric of another god or if you're certain cultural packages, because we have those as well, that require you a vow to obey a god. Just a quick example: Corion, the Forge Master, he's basically the paladin god, right? He's a god of good and righteousness and joyousness. If you are a cleric of Corion and you evoke Vangal the Ravager, the god of destruction and despair, he's going to get mad at you, and you're not going to get your powers until you atone for it. So,
Right.
But that said, there are 8 divine victors, and then you add Denev, who is a Titan, but on the side of the gods. So that's who all the good, quote unquote, druids worship, is Denev. But then there's 25, 30 demigods, something like that. And we're going to have everything broken out for the demigods too.
Sure. So this kind of leads into another question then that I'm going to ask a little bit early. We'll get back to the content of the book in a second.
Sure.
But the question really is like, what books are going to be, is the fantasy companion going to be required to use Scarred Lands, or is the goal to make it so that you don't need the fantasy companion?
My goal is that all you need is the core book.
Yeah.
There will be some,
yay.
Yeah, there will be some powers that it's going to reference that if you want those powers, you're going to have to go to the fantasy companion to get them. But there are also some places where powers that are presented in the fantasy companion, I will effectively be redesigning from the ground up to illustrate how they would work differently on Scarn. Good example of that is they have in the fantasy companion, it's plane shift, I believe. Planar travel is wildly different in Scarn because of the way the planes work, and all the things you have to go through to deal with it. So I just was like, I'm just going to make my own planar travel power. So anywhere where I see a good reason to create something different, which is also not to say, by the way, that if you're at your table and you're like, well, I want to use, plane shift, I'm not going to show up at your house and take your books.
Right.
Use whatever powers are best for you. But I will do my absolute level best. You never know how things are going to go, but I'll do my level best to ensure that you will never need to pick up a fantasy companion. You will probably want to.
I got mine already, but yeah, I know it's like one of the things that people, especially people who are outside of Savage Worlds, have mentioned to me before, is that they get frustrated that they pick up Deadlands. They like, oh, this was a really cool RPG, and they go, oh wait, I need another book to run this. And so especially it gets even crazier when you get to the point where it's like, oh, you have the core rule book, and you need a companion book, and then you need when I played Deluxe Edition, we ran through Last Parsec. I needed 4 books for that. I needed the core rule book, the science fiction companion, the Last Parsec core rule book, and then I needed the adventure I was running itself. So and I was okay at the time. Those books were actually fairly cheap compared to books today, so there wasn't as big a deal. So I think that's one of the things that I like to see is people like trying to make sure they only need the core rule book.
Well, yeah, I mean, and even discounting cost, it's never. I run Savage Rifts, so I know the pain of I got to look through 75 books to find the answer to this question. I want to spare people that pain. Never mind the cost. It's the cost and time as you're searching through your stack of PDFs to find out what. Where's that widget?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So
minimized.
Going back to the content of the book, we talked about ancestry, talked about arcane backgrounds. Now, you did mention something else, though, both in like the in the Kickstarter or maybe in a preview document or something that I read this about. And you mentioned it just now recently about cultural packages. So
yes,
is it something we've started seeing in other RPGs, like more I'll say more, unfortunately, more bigger RPGs of making a change between what who you are, what you're born as, and also like what the cultural background you grew up in. What's going on with that in Scarred Lands?
Well, so there's the reasons for the cultural package are twofold. One is that Scarn is a big planet with a lot of different cultures on it. So I wanted to make sure that there are ways that you can represent your heritage, where you grew up, where you came from, I guess, in a way that has mechanical heft. Because I do think that if I'm going to dedicate some words to it in the book, it should have some, and I'm going to ask you as a player to read it. There should be a way for you to leverage it at the table that matters, right? Because otherwise, why am I dumping all this lore in your lap? So that is part of it. The other thing is that there are a lot of organizations and even, to borrow the term from third edition, where Scarred Lands has its roots, prestige classes, things along those lines that I'm going to be looking at on a case-by-case basis. And some of those are going to become arcane backgrounds, and some of those are going to become cultural packages, and some of those are going to become professional edges. It's just one more tool in the toolbox to sort of figure out which silo this best fits in. Sure. Because again, I want to make sure that we are providing as much flavor and as many options as possible without clogging the bandwidth for the player.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like once you get that stuff on your sheet, it should just be go, 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 go. And it should all feel very familiar. So yeah, it's just a matter of picking like which one makes the best sense for that particular widget. The cultural packages will be a big part of that, because there's a lot of those prestige classes that are really going to boil down to like flavor and one system widget. You know what I mean? Right. So I can accomplish that with a cultural package.
Cool. All right. Venkel asked, and this is the question I was going to kind of get to. He asked, any suggested core book setting rules like Great Damage? My question is going to be, what, again, along those lines, what setting rules are you pulling from the core rulebook, and what setting rules are you adding yourself? You mentioned one already with the Mesos Bane, but what other, what ones are we, what kind of like, because I mentioned this in a recent video as well, is that I think setting rules really kind of help you convey the tone of the game. So what are we looking at?
I would agree wholeheartedly. I'm digging through because I think if I'm not mistaken, I just recently dropped an update about those. Let's see. So as far as the new setting rules go, while I'm digging through looking for those updates, the new setting rules, we've got Mesos' Bane, which I explained before. We have Titan Spawn, which effectively sets it up so that certain creatures are delineated Titan Spawn. Those Titan Spawn are kind of like considered evil. It's a tag and a trigger that can be placed on not only creatures and NPCs, but can actually wind up on a player character as well. That then certain abilities will interact with them that way, or in a different way, I should say. And that is the Titan Spawn setting rule. We have the Wild World setting rule, where it's basically a permission slip for the game master to decide at the beginning of a combat that any of the characters on their side, any of the NPCs, are elevated to a wild card. And that's basically to represent the fact that, like, you might walk into a room full of goblins and think to yourself, oh, this is just a room full of goblins, easy peasy, no problem. But then you find out one of those goblins is a wild card. Haha, surprise. Everything's a little scarier than you think it is. And that's kind of the vibe that rule is there for. And I realize, again, that's kind of, it's really about giving an overt permission slip to the GM, because I think sometimes GMs don't feel quite as comfortable with making some of those shifts, especially early on in running.
Right.
So if I say flat out, like, no, you can do that, it's fine. then I think that's encouraging that behavior. We have a multiple languages setting rule where we're going a little bit further than what it says in the core book, because our languages are broken down into common, exotic, and dead. So getting exotic languages or dead languages costs more slots.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
So it's a tier list of, like,
right. Yeah, because there are languages that are that haven't been spoken since before the Divine War, because everybody who spoke them is now dead. So learning those languages is a little bit more hard, a little bit more challenging than just starting off with, oh, I know the trade language in this continent. And we do not expressly set up like trade languages from other continents being considered exotic or whatever, but that's something that a GM might choose to do. If they're like, we're going to set this game on Asherak, everybody's going to play in Asherak. If you want the Termanan trade language, that's going to be exotic because none of you are from Termana, things like that. So those are options and widgets that they can use at their leisure. What else have we got? We do have the giant foes that appears, I believe, in the Fantasy Companion.
I think it's in the core as well.
Is it? That may be. Then we've got.
I might be wrong.
If somebody wants to use them, the downtime activities from Savage Worlds Fantasy Companion are fine to do. There's a list of them that are okay to do. I think there's one or two that is strictly dealt with conviction, which we do not use. So those were omitted. And then,
I'm gonna be honest, I'm okay with that. Conviction is one of the things I'm like I have a hard time with. So
I found out the hard way when I was designing my game Contagion, which once the dust settles from this, I may go through and do a new edition of Contagion. It's running on the same chassis it's been on since I first converted to Savage Worlds 2 Savage Worlds editions ago. So it's probably time. But one of the mistakes that I made, and I will freely own this up and apologize to anyone who owns that book, is I put in another meta currency besides bennies. And that's just my advice to you is that to anyone who's watching as a Savage Worlds designer, don't do that. It's a bad idea.
Just one meta currency is enough.
Yeah.
Just let it do more things.
Yeah, exactly. If I was a smart person, I would have done that. But so short answer, that's why I steer away from conviction, because I feel like it's sort of trying to eat the bennies lunch, and bennies work well. And we found some uses for them too. Like I mentioned the Ushada earlier, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a bond with a Ushada spirit, it's an edge you can take. You can you get a constant bonus, but you also get a channeling bonus, and you activate your channeling bonus by spending a Benny. So then for 10 minutes, you get this extra special thing that you can do. Usually it's a power, or like it's another edge that gets you access to, or something like that. So
I have thoughts about that, but I'll leave those aside.
And I know I'd love to hear them, but I did want to say first, though, we have Born a Hero is there, and then Fanatics is the other.
The Fanatics one, I feel like is you mentioned permission slips, but it's kind of like the permission slip that the GM has to say to go no, there's a rule for this, players.
Right.
You just do it. If you just do it without the setting rule, players go, "What? That's lame." But if they have a setting rule, you're like, no, it's a rule. I can just
exactly.
See, this rule says I can do this.
Same thing with what do you mean that goblins ace all of a sudden, a wild card all of a sudden?
I just said it just now. But this rule says I can do that.
Right.
And Born a Hero is one I see mentioned a lot, but I haven't played in a game that uses it. And I haven't learned, because I haven't used it yet. I know my players are I won't say min-maxers, but they like to try to figure out things. I'm curious to see what they would come up with for the Born a Hero, like starting out really strong, or starting out something extra strong.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why we have that in there is because there are some, again, we're introducing some pretty bizarre edges and things that just come in strange. And there are also cultural packages that ignore. So you might have a cultural package that has a edge that you get that is normally seasoned. It ignores it. It ignores that limitation because that's what the people in that area learned, or the people who have that job learn, or whatever. So my thinking on it is because it's such a vast world, giving somebody access to some higher level edges, as long as they meet the other requirements, is I don't think that that's going to throw the balance.
No. Yeah. As I mentioned, we're not worried about balance. All right, so we know there's going to be some new setting rules. We know there's going to be some new arcane backgrounds, lots of ancestries. Is there any new skills you're introducing?
At least I'm trying to keep that to a minimum. So the skills that I'll be adding will largely be ones that are attached to arcane backgrounds.
Right. Okay. Which is
So
completely normal.
Right.
And it's not even. It's not even like really adding a new. It's like
it's like a slightly changed widget, but
yeah.
But
it's not.
Again, though, I do think it's an important distinction to note, particularly in this case, because the arcane skill will be determining what does and does not trigger Mesos' Bane. So
right.
That's where it becomes a little bit more. And some of them, again, I'm on the fence. I really am trying to err on the side of not adding unnecessary things. But like one of the things I was noodling with today is the design for Shadowmancy, because shadow magic has a very specific context and a very specific connotation in Scarred Lands.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the fence about whether or not it should have its own arcane skill, because it's drastically different than like I just make shadows do things. It's like there's a whole you're plugging into a dimension that belongs to a particular demigoddess, and she has thoughts. And there are, and there's a whole.
She's opinionated.
Yeah, she's opinionated. Gods tend to be. Who knew?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're okay. So yeah, so there's but mostly spellcasting ones. There's gonna be new edges. There's gonna be new hindrances. They're gonna be specific to the setting. New powers. I think you said there will be new powers.
Definitely new powers. Yeah. I've introduced a couple of them in Ring of Spiragos, which is another thing that I did want to touch base on. If you're looking to test drive it and you don't want to go in for the player's guide, we do have a full campaign on Drive-Thru RPG right now. It's got ready-made characters in the back of it. One of the things I did, because I really wanted this to be open for brand new players, but also something that you really only need the book and you don't need to think too hard to run it. The ready-made characters all have suggested advances in them. So like literally as a player, you don't ever have to think. You can just take your character all the way up to legendary if you go through the trilogy. And it's all laid out for you what to do. But that's a campaign that people can play through. It's got the ancestries that are used in it, and the cultural packages that are used in it. And in Ring, in the final book of the trilogy, it has some new powers that we introduced. So those will be in there for sure, and then definitely more powers as well.
Yeah, so to answer your question, yes, there's I wouldn't call it a plot point campaign, but there's a campaign.
Yeah, I mean, Gauntlet, the Spiragos trilogy is very much like this is the plan. It's not quite Railroad, but there's a beginning, middle, and end for sure.
Yeah. It's definitely not a plot point campaign and how Savage Worlds uses it. No. Mostly because it was designed for a D20 system, which is pretty used to those kind of adventures. So the Gauntlet of Spragos, the Dagger of Spragos, and the Ring of Spragos as a trilogy, definitely more I would probably say designed more for like a D20 type that kind of game system.
It's definitely designed in a traditional adventure path sort of way. I haven't looked at the adventure paths for Savage Pathfinder, but I assume they're probably similar in design.
I would say so. Yeah, I'm running through the Rise of the Rimlords adventure path, and it is definitely way more work for me to try to go off course from it, as I like to do, than a typical plot point campaign is. Because the nice part is like
the one thing I will say that's very nice about the Spiragos trilogy, and this is something I do intend to preserve as we're doing more adventures. We have already unlocked one adventure stretch goal. So one adventure book, and then expanded it through stretch goals. So there's going to be a book coming out that's going to have a bunch of like one-shot adventures in it, and those will have like information on the area where they take place, and then plot hooks and seeds, so you can sort of run. It's not quite to the detail level of a plot point campaign, but closer to almost like a one sheet that would be in support of that beyond it itself, if that makes sense, beyond the adventure itself.
Right.
And so that's going to be there, but also like in Gauntlet of Spirios, for example, there's a whole gazetteer section that talks about the Fangsfall region, which is where that adventure is set. And there's stuff for random encounters there. There's stuff for weather hazards there. So you can kind of, it really does provide you with a whole lot of information to go off and sort of run your own thing with it.
Right.
You know, and that's something that I intend to carry through all of the adventures that we publish for this, because again, while the player's guide is going to be a big book, we're covering 5 continents. Each continent's we're not going to be able to get into the nitty gritty of like this town, you know.
What format are you expecting to do the book in?
It's going to be in the standard Savage Worlds size.
Okay. So not the that was the question. Like, is it going to be like more like the standard Savage Worlds size, or is it going to be the big 8.5 long? Which
the closest that drive through will let me get to the Savage Worlds size.
So I think like this is like the Starbreakers one, which is like closest to.
Yeah, it's like 7 by 10 or something like that.
Yeah, it's the same height, but it's a little bit wider. So you put it onto a shelf, it matches the height of all your books. But then if you turn sideways, you're like, oh wait.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So another question I was going to ask about that. I mean, so it's because it's going to be like 400 pages. It's going to be like a nice thicker book. Then
it will be a thick.
It'll be a tome of a book, which I mean, I think I'm looking forward to just holding it because it's like maybe it's nice like.
Have some weight to it.
Yeah, I imagine like the Shadow Dark book to me is like a nice tome. It's like a thicker book but smaller, and it's like that's how I'm imagining this one. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that's the hope.
And I imagine that there, because you're getting this license through Onyx Path. You have access to all the artwork for this setting.
Yeah, so that's one of the best things about this licensing agreement to me is I pretty much got the keys to the castle, and they were like, "Yeah, knock yourself out." So I've got incredibly, like, the cover art that we have for that was the cover for 5e. Aaron J. Riley did that. That is beautiful. It's so stunning. I've thought about, like, should I do an alternate cover or should I? But that cover is so pretty. The only cover that I can think of that's prettier than that one that we have from Scarred Lands is another one that Aaron J. Riley did. The cover for Dead Man's Rust, which I don't know if you've seen that, but that was a beautiful, beautiful piece of art. I want it framed on my wall. And that is, speaking of campaigns, Dead Man's Rust was, when it was conceived, was probably closer to the way a plot point campaign actually works. Just by accident. I kind of happened to build it that way, I suppose, but it was for 5e. So my hope is that next year, if this goes well and if things continue to go well, that next year I'm hoping to focus on getting Dead Man's Rust out there.
Here's Dead Man's Rust real quick.
Because that was I'm super proud of that campaign. It's one of my favorite things I've ever worked on. So I would love to be able to bring that to Savage Worlds.
So and say how for the other things that aren't being brought to Savage Worlds, how easy is it going to be to bring them to Savage Worlds, to the Savage Worlds version?
Well, in terms of system stuff, you're looking at, it's really no different than bringing anything 5e over. My advice to people is always, to emulate, not translate. Look for the vibes, find the thing that, the widget that makes this thing cool and make sure it can do that over here in the system. Yeah. And then, and I have like math I use I have really sloppy math I use for the dice. So like, basically if you're at a modifier if you're a negative modifier, you're at a D4. If you're at a 0, you're at a D6, and then just step it on up, those are real quick back of the napkin math, and then change them when you need to. But really that's the only, one of the add-ons we have at the Kickstarter, several of the add-ons we have at the Kickstarter lets you get old D20 books, so you can get the in-depth setting information from them, and they're full of lore, full of useful things, and the amount of most of the system stuff we will be changing for you anyway, but the amount of stuff that you would need to do would be fairly minimal. So I really recommend checking those out, just because the lore of this place is so rich and thick and developed.
Yeah.
It's
I was
worth
around
having.
for 25 years, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So one of the other things, so one of the things I was going to ask is, also there's a lot of 5e content.
Sure.
Is there a plan, probably depending on how well this does, to do more Scarred Lands stuff in the future?
Oh yeah. Again, it will depend on how this pans out. But I certainly don't intend to slow down anytime soon. I have, we've been doing our monthly creature profiles. Those are going to continue at least through the end of 2026. I do want to do I want to bring Dead Man's Rust over for sure. I have some other things that I would love to talk to the license holder about, some other ideas I'd like to try to unroll next year. We'll see how it goes. I know there's been a lot of people who have asked in the Kickstarter about, are you going to do a Relics and Rituals book? Are you going to do a creature collection book? And the answer is I would love to do both of those. We'll just have to see. I'm going to look and see what's left after I put the player's guide together, because I am drawing from everything. So some of the Relics and Ritual stuff is coming in. Some of the creature collection stuff is coming in. But, certainly not all of it.
and for those who are watching, I covered one of the creature profiles in a video. So if you want to, I think it was like the first one.
Yeah, it was the Blood Reaper, one of my favorite monsters in all of Scarred Lands, because they're just
I did a little bit of a comparison between the 5e version and the Savage version. So if you guys are interested in taking a look at that, I'll try to remember to link it up somewhere. If not, just search Scarred Lands Savage Worlds and you'll probably find it. Sure. But it's a scary monster. I'll say that, because it's even in Savage Worlds, I'm like, oh boy, that's gonna.
Yeah, they're Cuisinarts. They're living Cuisinarts. They're not meant to be like, and that's if I have advice to new players coming to the Savage Worlds, there's no shame in running. Coming to the Scarred Lands, there's no shame in running. Sometimes you look at a thing and you go,
that's just good advice.
That's not my fight
for all players.
Right?
That's just good advice in general.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually becoming more and more of a thing in the tabletop role playing community, where GMs are no longer trying to balance things; they're just going off vibes. They're like, this makes sense.
I mean, and part of that, not to hop on a soapbox for a moment, but part of that is due to the relatively poor design that some systems that shall not be named have used for balancing their monsters. But I think some of that too, though, is it just makes more sense, right? Like to me, the world of Skarn is not broken up into level ranges like Azeroth. You know what I'm saying? Like, things are where they are. So if you're wandering through a desert, sure, you might come across, just some Titan spawn Slytherin people, little rat people who still worship the Titans. And they have some magic, and they're a little bit tough and they're a little bit scary. But at the end of the day, a party of adventurers should be able to dispatch them with relative ease. And then you might turn around and there's a stone builder ooze behind you, which is, a size 8 ooze that can engulf you, and when it does, cover you in quick dry cement effectively. So and those can be within feet of each other, and what do? You run.
So timeline, the Kickstarter will be ending in a week or two, the 20th.
Yeah, it ends on the 15th.
Yeah, somewhere there. And then you'll be collecting pledges, setting out. I believe you said you'll be sending out at some point, whenever you're finished with everything. You're gonna be sending out first draft to backers for feedback, then PDF copies for feedback, and then finally the POD. And that's all looking at. I think you said is it March 2026?
My hope is have POD in people's hands by the end of March. I'm confident that I can do that based on previous Kickstarters I've run and previous things I've worked on, and just working out the timelines. Also, part of the reason why I'm doing this Kickstarter is so that I can not take freelance work for a couple months and focus in on this writing. Because I have this powerful need to eat. So
That's very strong need to eat. Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of it. But yeah. So now the things that are already available through add-ons, like if people are pre-ordering Spiragos or they're getting the D20 add-ons or stuff like that, those we're going to process as soon as the payments are processed. I will get a list of what Onyx Path needs to send off, and they can send those off to people. Mm-hmm. And I will send off any of the add-ons that people have purchased through mine that are already available. I'm not going to make you wait until you have this book to get things that are already out.
Right.
Like that would be silly. But so, and the way the plan is broken down right now is there will be people that donate just at the $5 level. They will get a coupon against the final PDF, and they will get the pre-errata PDF, but they're not going to be involved in the errata process. It's people that are going to get a final PDF and above. Right. And then there are also there's $100 perk that people can bag for. That's a consulting developer, where basically they will be included in, if I have, like, for example, if I hire on a writer, communications between me and that writer, they'll be included in. I will give them copies of the outlines. They can really see kind of the way the book is shaping, and they'll have opportunities to give additional feedback beyond just proofing and errata. So it's going to be a chance. That's proven to be a very popular perk. So it's going to be exciting because I'll have kind of a council of people that I can sort of run ideas by, and then people can point out and be like, hey, this is a concern for the rule because of X, Y, and Z, and then it can only help. It can only help. So I'm excited about it.
All right. Well, I think that's all the questions I have. We could also we could definitely dive into these. There's a whole lot of lore in this. So we could be diving into a whole bunch of lore about all different ancestries. All 35 of them. But we can't. I don't think we have time for that today.
Probably not.
No.
One thing I do want to make sure that I let people know, because I don't think I've talked this up enough.
Yeah.
My intent right now is to have an appendix in the book that will include not only information on all the gods and the titans, but stat blocks for the gods, the avatars of the gods and the demigods, and then adventure guides for the titans. So as I mentioned, like some of the titans, like their bodies are literally adventure environments. Other ones, you might not be able to get to their body, because it might be in the sun, for example. But there will be a guide for how to make their presence felt in your adventures. So that was something I wanted to definitely touch on.
Yeah. I think it helps enforce the thematic and tonal elements of the setting, for sure.
And give the GM a chance to actually have a god show up if your players screw up bad enough.
Is there going to be a sort of adventure generator in the book?
In the player's guide, probably not like a specific tables and generate adventures.
Right.
Probably not, because I am trying to keep it as player focused as possible, even in including that information about the gods and the titans. That's really about the players being able to see, engage, and be like, oh crap, the gods can do what now? What do you mean they don't have to spend PowerPoints? Things like that. So if there's space, definitely I will have something along those lines. But again, I'm a big fan of putting in plot hooks wherever I can find them. That's why there are specific plot hooks called out in all the creature profiles, but also just in the backstories, I try to put plot hooks as well.
Right.
So I don't want anybody to ever feel like they're shy of ideas.
Sure.
So, and if I can't fit it in the book, I'll definitely have something like that in the adventures book. So that's the add-on. So as long as you back at a high enough perk to get a hold of a PDF of the final PDF, so I think that starts at 20. As long as you back that high, you will get the PDF of the adventures that we've already unlocked the stretch goal for. So that's coming, and that will have adventures in it. It'll have little guidelines for how to maybe build a PPC off of that adventure, and then it'll have just how to generate stories in those regions. So I think there'll be a lot of tools available.
Right. All right. Cool. Well, we covered a lot today. Is there anything that I did not ask or we didn't talk about that you want to make sure got mentioned before we land the plane today?
Just that I'm very grateful to everyone who has backed it so far and everyone who's shared it. I'm very grateful to you for letting me come on here and talk about it.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. I when it first got announced, I'm like, oh, I know this setting. I know this setting.
Well, I appreciate it. And I really appreciated you dropping that review of the Blood Reaper right away. That was very cool because that I think helped us get the word out in ways that maybe we wouldn't have otherwise. So I appreciate that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, just again, we are fully funded. There's already a expansion book that has been funded by this Kickstarter that's going to be coming as well. So you're going to get a whole bunch of playable material. You're going to get a whole bunch of adventures. You don't necessarily need to use all that with this setting too. Like if you have your own homebrew fantasy setting, or if you're playing Savage Pathfinder, I can't imagine it would be too difficult to mix and match those things.
No, yeah. Especially since you said like the ancestors are basically the same power level of Savage Pathfinder is. So.
Right. Yeah, I think we're kind of on par. Just again trying to get as far away as we can from any sort of a class architecture.
Oh, yeah. All right, great. I was like, Savage Pathfinder has classes, but it's,
right.
It's not. I mean, it's whatever. Awesome. Well, that sounds great. I'm super excited. If you're interested in this, please check the link down below to go check the Kickstarter, or head over to Drive-Thru RPG and check out the plethora of material that's already been created by Travis for this setting, whether it be monsters, which you don't have to use in Scarred Lands. You could absolutely just take the monsters and you'll put them into your game and absolutely terrify your players because these monsters are bonkers.
They really are.
So you can grab those and do that, or you can take a look at the trilogy of adventures. I've read the Gauntlet of Sporagos in 5e. I've not run it yet in Savage Worlds. I never got around to the dagger or the rings. I'm not sure what happened with that. But take a look at those things.
Now you have an excuse to do it.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I have an excuse to do it as well as like all these other excuses to do other things I haven't done. There's so many games to little time, and I'm just talking about Savage Worlds, let alone all the other RPGs out there.
I absolutely feel your pain. I have a whole stack of books back there that I worked on. You can't see them behind this map of Asherak that I have, but I have a whole stack of books back there that I've worked on that I haven't got to play yet. So,
yeah. Well, thank you all for hanging out. We'll be on next week. I don't have anyone interviewing next week, so I will have to figure out a topic to actually talk about and like prepare for and such. So we'll see what happens there. But thank you all for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. And I hope you all have a good one. Check out Scarred Lands.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks for the wonderful questions. Appreciate it.